What's going on, everybody? Eric Lindquist of Stokastic here on the Oddchopper channel, coming to you with my 3 favorite prize picks for Thursday Night Football. We have one good team playing on Thursday. Yay! The Philadelphia Eagles, undefeated, rather good at the old football game. They're playing the Houston Texans. Absolute mismatch in this one. Going to be intriguing. Well, hey, that's why we got prize picks. I tell you what, it's pretty fun to play over there. We're doing prop-based stuff. We're playing more or less on different lines that are set either in Fantasy Score or the prop market. Take advantage of promo code Stokastic. Get up to a $100 first match deposit bonus. That is directly above my head. Take advantage of that. If you want to just deposit 20, you'll get an extra 20. So you'll have $40 for play over here for this NFL Thursday. Now, that's about all I have here for the introduction. I've been running so bad in the prize pick streets here the last week or so. I apologize to everybody involved, but you know what? Better days are on the horizon, and we're just staying the course because this has been working. And oh man, I think it's got to be all encompassing. We're going to be correlating our plays. I'm going to be playing Jalen Hurts. I'm going to be playing him with a main pass catcher, and I'm going to play somebody on the other side and hoping for more points because that's going to happen, right? Right? We'll see. Philadelphia, a lot of improvements, a lot of things on the defensive side of the ball, but Jalen Hurts remains the same. He is phenomenal. 277.5 passing plus rush yards. Eric, why are you?
I've legitimately never met anybody that I've worked with in the fantasy industry in real life. This is pretty wild because I've been doing this for a while now.
What's up? Let's get ready for a little Thursday Night Football. The sixth event in Philadelphia tonight, or at least as far as the Philly fans are concerned. Eagles taking on the Texans. The game will be in Houston. It's not in Philadelphia. I'm Pete McCarthy with Geoff Ulrich. And yeah, Geoff, we've never met, dude. What's up with that?
I don't know, man. I mean, probably because I live in the Antarctic, basically, or not the Antarctic, the North Pole, basically. I can't even get the direction of the planet right. But yeah, that's usually why nobody comes up to where I live because they're not crazy enough. It turned from pretty nice to Hoth here where I live in the last week. So, that's your explanation. No one wants to come up to where I live.
North Pole. I mean, this finally explains the red walls.
Yeah, that's right.
You're up in the North Pole. Okay. Give us a like.
Workshop right up there, man.
You got the workshop next door. That's right. Give us a like, subscribe, keep up with all of our shows, our DFS offers, our giveaways, and much more. Once you do subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Don't forget, almost all of our content is available in podcast form on your platform of choice. You can help us out. Leave a 5-star review. You don't get to see Geoff if you do that, but you can hear his expertise as he's got the hat covering up the elf ears, I assume, up there in the North Pole. We're breaking down no house advantage. Obviously, this Eagles-Texans Thursday Night Football matchup. You can play the pick'em contest, $15 entry, $10,000 to first place. You can also play against the house. You go 5 of 5, you get 21 times your money. You're just not going to see that anywhere else. As far as the game tonight, the Eagles are a little bit of a favorite, a 2-touchdown favorite. The point total, pretty average, 45.5. Weather won't be a factor tonight. I guess in this matchup in general, we know now Brandon Cooks is not going to play for Houston. They're also down another receiver in this game that was on the board, Nico Collins. So Houston's a little banged up. The Eagles are undefeated. What jumps out at you right away, big picture in this game, Geoff?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, wasn't expecting Cooks to play. We know that Nico Collins was already, just out because of his own
He's got groin injury,
attitude problems. I don't even know. But he's gone. So we've got limited dudes back in the lineup. But to Noah's advantage's credit, I mean, we've got a Chris Moore prop. Davis Mills is obviously still up there. Brevin Jordan is up. So there's opportunity here to go to potentially, take what's given to us in this situation where we have players out and potentially make lineups around it. I mean, we can start with that. I mean, we have a 1.5 prop up for Chris Moore. The entire world is probably going to be over on this because now there's no Cooks, there's no Nico Collins. Moore was already like the starting slot receiver. He's got to catch 2 balls. So we have this projected as a hard over as well, as you'd expect. No shock here. But there's scenarios where Davis Mills is just abjectively bad. The Eagles defense is far better than the Houston's offense, and Moore goes 1 for 5 in targets as well. So it's something to think about off the top. If I was going to go under on Moore, I'd probably just go under on his receiving yards. Much more likely he catches 3 balls for 14 yards, than only catches 1 pass, I think. But hey, again, most of the field is going to be using this as a free square. That's fine to do, but there's going to be big leverage here as well. If you took an under on a Chris Moore prop.
Yeah, if you're doing multiple lineups, you can find the exception. And not for nothing, Chris Moore played on Sunday against the Titans. He was not targeted a single time in that game. He saw a decent amount of snaps. He played 34 snaps, so it's not like he wasn't involved at all. And on the other side, I mean, one of the numbers that jumped out, just looking at the team numbers, the Philadelphia Eagles have the second best pass defense in the NFL, according to Football Outsiders DVOA. That's always what I look at. You could argue different things, look at different stats, whatever you like, but just gives you a quick and dirty, hey, Eagles are really good at stopping the pass. So you have a couple of different things here, because we know Houston, they want to run the ball. They want to get it to Damian Pierce. They weren't able to get that going against Tennessee last week, but that's the goal. They don't want Davis Mills going back and throwing 40 times in this game.
No, absolutely. And I mean, again, Pierce is going to be a pretty hard take for me here, but we have other options too. Brevin Jordan is there. And again, credit to No House Advantage. I mean, they got the players that we want up here. I mean, Moore is going to be on the field a lot. Brevin Jordan is back, played 56% of the snaps. I think those are the players who, are going to be, if Houston makes an impact in this game, in the past game, they'll be the players to do it. So Brevin Jordan, we do have the reception prop. Yeah. 2 points. I mean, again, we have his projections about neutral. So there's really no advantage when, we don't have a big lean on either way here. Slight unders to the yardage, but again, you've got to think, I mean, there's a few tight ends getting involved. OJ Howard is still there, but Brevin Jordan's the starter. You've got to think that there's a good chance he ends up with 6 targets here, and he converts on 3 of them. I think there's a good chance he maybe even pushes over the yardage, but if you're going to go under, if you're going to take some kind of stance on Chris Moore, or even if you're not, I mean, I think Brevin Jordan will be the lower owned prop of the two. So something to think about there. As you mentioned, the Eagles, very good on the outside. They actually were pretty bad against guarding against tight ends last year. They've improved a lot, but it's still probably a better place to attack them. So you've got Jordan and Moore to think about. If you just want to take overs on both those guys too, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. Again, if you had 10 lineups, I would definitely think about creating some leverage with these props as well, because they're just going to be so widely owned, at least in my opinion. Obviously the Moore one's super highly owned, but yeah, Brevin Jordan, expect to be out there. We'll be pretty shocked if he doesn't go over really both of those props, I think, just with the situation, but yeah, he's a big tight end, not super great after the catch. So again, feel better about the receptions going over than the yards.
Yeah, and Brevin Jordan, he hasn't reached 2.5 receptions, 3 receptions, let's call it, or 27 yards all season long.
Yeah.
But a little bit of a different situation tonight, as we've talked about, with the Texans down a couple of receivers. We kind of mentioned Damian Pierce. I guess we'll just run through the Houston offense, then we can get to Philadelphia a little bit. 63.5 rushing yards. You said you don't see that happening. I gotta think they give him. Oh, okay. Maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, when I said hard take, I meant to the over.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. I do think he'll go over. I think that the Houston has no other game plan here than to give Damian Pierce the ball, regardless of the score. I mean, I think you'll see them running on early down as much as possible. Even if it's just, he gets 20 carries and he gets 65 yards. I think that'll probably get over there. If he does break off a couple big plays, that's good. And one thing we have seen about the Eagles too, Pete, when they get ahead, they tend to allow some big chunks of yards on the ground. I don't know if that's just kind of a fluke thing that's happened, but it has happened a couple times now. like when you look at their defensive rankings, they're like 5th last in yards per carry against, but it's not. But the big yardage games have kind of come in a couple spots where they've gotten up and then their defense has just sat back. So I think it's more of a scheme thing than anything, but that could get Pierce over here too. I think this total is just a little bit too low, given all the circumstances and ways that Pierce could get there. So
you got some garbage time yards on the ground from Houston. I don't think Damian Pierce has reached a point in his career where, he gets put on the bench and it's like, hey, we got to save this guy. I think, even if they're down 21 points in the fourth quarter, they may be running the ball with Damian Pierce a little bit and you could get there. The projections have it pretty even on Damian Pierce. He didn't get there last week against Tennessee, 15 carries, 35 yards, but Derrick Henry did so much work on the ground in that game. On the other side, there wasn't a ton of opportunity for Damian Pierce. And then the Texans found themselves playing from behind. So I think it's a little bit of a different situation this week, even against this terrific Philadelphia Eagles team. Davis Mills, the Houston quarterback, we got 215.5 passing yards, half an interception, which I was tempted to, but ended up looking at that 1.5 passing touchdowns line. It's just really hard to imagine Davis Mills getting 2 touchdowns. He hasn't thrown for more than 2 touchdowns in any game this year.
And if he does get there against the Eagles again, I mean, maybe he catches him off guard at the start and gets a quick one. And then, maybe a late one late in the game. And maybe this game is closer than obviously we think and the line thinks, but yeah, even in like garbage time, like he'd need like 2 garbage time touchdowns. Like unless he gets one quickly in this game, it's pretty hard to see a scenario where he gets 2. So yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Especially with the receivers that he has tonight, as we talked about, he doesn't have his top weapons.
Exactly.
You're not getting a freak play, a 10-yard slant that goes to the house. He doesn't have those guys.
If they march down with Pierce, maybe at the start of the game, and then he throws a quick one to like Jordan or like one of the tight ends, that could get you 1, but you still need the second one. And I mean, like you said, like there's the big play options are gone. So even if Philly is soft to start the game, like they're not going to just let the Texans run all over them. So, oh man, it's pretty thin. This feels pretty good. Like I almost feel better about this one than the Chris Morrow. I actually do. I'll say it. I feel better about the Davis Mills underpassing touchdowns prop than the over Chris Moore receptions prop. I know we have more projected, and there's free projections for No Advantage on the site, guys. We do have more projected over 1.5 receptions as the strongest play, but I actually feel better about taking the under on Davis Mills 1.5 passing touchdowns. They're both projected as top 3 plays, but that's just my feeling about it. It's pretty thin, I think. Yeah,
I'm with you. I just think in general, the quarterbacks are a lot easier to forecast. And running backs too, rather than the receivers. The receivers are the most random. That's where you have one big play that can change everything and goof it up. You don't see that as much. It's a little easier with the quarterbacks, with the running backs over the course of a full game. And as you mentioned with those projections, you go to Stokastic.com, NFL projections go down. You get free No House Advantage projections, which will give you a percentage chance that each play is over or under. As much as we're talking about it here, we're working off that kind of information to help us out along as well. Also should tell you, you can get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to a $1,000 risk-free bet when you sign up, make a deposit, and make your first paid wager at BetMGM. So these are the steps to make this happen. You create a free Stokastic membership using the form below, or you can log in if you already have a Stokastic.com account. You then click the large BetMGM button that appears after registering or logging in, and then complete the necessary steps with BetMGM. Create a BetMGM sportsbook account, deposit at least $10, make your first paid bet, and then once your bet settles, you qualify for the Stokastic subscription, and you'll receive an email from BetMGM Sportsbook with the instructions for redeeming your 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. That almost sounds complex after a while, but it's really simple, right? Make sure you have a Stokastic account. Go to BetMGM, put in $10. They got a good deal for you there in terms of a $1,000 risk-free bet, and then boom, just make sure, you're not betting the Super Bowl or something. Bet something that's going to end soon. And then you can start up your 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum and find out what that's all about behind the paywall. So pretty cool stuff as far as that goes. All right, let's get back to the game. Let's go to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is always fun. One thing about Houston's defense that jumped out to me, They have the worst rush defense in the NFL, according to Football Outsiders rush DVOA. That raised an eyebrow to me. Maybe it shouldn't have, because Derrick Henry has run for over 200 yards in 4 straight games against them, but I guess it all checks out. So I kind of think it's interesting with Philadelphia, like how much are they really going to have to put the ball in the air? We know this team is so good on 3rd and shorts. They have so many different ways they could beat you. I mean, you're looking at Jalen Hurts trying to get to 260 passing yards, 1.5 passing touchdowns you could look at as well, and half an interception, which I really like here. He has only thrown 2 interceptions all season long, hasn't thrown, more than 1 in the same game. You expect the Eagles to play from ahead. It's just one bad throw, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Hurts to make that kind of mistake.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a pretty much lockstep here. You look at the Eagles, and he's just been so good at handling the ball. It's an INT prop, obviously. It's kind of like the receptions, like we could just get just one bad tip or something. But it's pretty hard to dislike this one. This is one where I guess you could be a little bit contrarian as well, put it as like a lower point prop and go it over. But that's probably just getting a little fancy and just really like not that necessary. Yeah, I mean, they have Derek Stingley back there. They were good to start the year, the Houston secondary with picks and stuff, but they tailed off a little bit. I know it's at home, but yeah, I see this game as I don't think Hurts is going to pass that much either. I mean, even if like the Eagles have to put points on the board and they're going to throw the ball points, but I think this is the spot for Hurts to get going on the ground again. He hasn't done that much the last 2 games with his legs. You got a really bad rush defense here. If they start giving up a couple chunk plays to Miles Sanders, he's just going to tuck it and run. And yeah, so again, I don't feel as confident about it as the Davis Mills passing touchdown one, because it's just one play. But yeah, it feels pretty good to take Hurts on the under interception here. He may not throw the ball more than like 8 times in the second half, and they're not going to be high danger throws if they're ahead. So.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be trying to run the ball. I think tonight I can see both teams running the ball, which is why I generally like a lot of the unders in this game. So we could jump to Miles Sanders and look at where he is at in this game. So we talked about Houston has had done a horrendous job trying to stop the run. It's a high total here for Miles Sanders, 73.5 rushing yards. We do have a projection that's below that. So you really got to believe in what the game flow is going to be. And I guess the other issue with the Eagles is, all right, even if they do run the ball a lot and run the ball successfully, will it necessarily be Miles Sanders that is the one picking up all the yardage, or does Jalen Hurts get involved? Galloway probably still in the mix there, right? I mean, what are we looking at with Miles Sanders?
Yeah, and this is one it's kind of a catch-22. Like we think that the Eagles are going to run the ball, but the way the Eagles run the ball is just, it's so much different than most teams. They have the rushing quarterback who legitimately averages 10 rushes per game. So that hurts. As Sanders, I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. You've got Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell there
Yep.
They get, what did you call him? Galloway? I mean, I actually forgot who it was this morning. I was talking about the Eagles backups and I was like Boston Scott and that other guy. So, but yeah, Kenneth Gainwell's there as well. I think this is a really big total. Again, like Sanders is going to get some usage and I expect him to have a pretty solid game, but if we get into the third quarter, like I think that like Boston Scott, you could just see him play for a couple series. And I actually kind of like Boston Scott to score a touchdown in this game, by the way. And we don't have any props like that, obviously, up here, but for no house anyways, potentially for their I'll
take a look.
Yeah, for their versus the house contest. But Miles Sanders, I think it's a good under target. I do for the pick'em contest. Absolutely. It's over 70. If this was like at 68, I'd probably say, that's a little dicey because, it just takes one kind of 30-yard rush. And then you're like, well, he gets around 12 carries, but I think 73 is fadeable. Just for the simple fact, just not expecting like them necessarily to need to lean on Miles Sanders the entire game. They have so many different options. It's such a weak team. It's a short week. They're probably not going to want to use them up anyways. So yeah, good fade target. I think is that. And I trying to think about like how you would even correlate it, but the correlation in this game is so weird because, unless you're doing some kind of drastic, like, 1% chance, like taking Davis Mills overs and then like Sanders unders with like I don't know, like you're taking Hurts, like playing for like a shootout. I don't even like, it just seems so unrealistic.
Well, I went the other way. So I went over on Miles Sanders rushing and then under. You can go under on Jalen Hurts passing yards, which is pretty hot. And then AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and go under on their receiving yards.
Right. So just, I mean, again, I'm trying to correlate with Texas, which is like, with Houston, sorry, which doesn't make, no. And I mean, what you said makes perfect sense. Like, I just don't even know how you can correlate anything with the Texans, maybe with the exception of like Davis Mills over passing yards, but
what we like about the Texans, right, is just the fact that they don't have anybody. So we're talking about like 2 catches for Chris Moore and 3 catches for Brevin Jordan. Like, we're not asking these guys to get 7 and 8, like, Chris Evans and Chris Godwin last week.
That's the thing. Like, we're not even worried about game flow with the Texans because their props are so low. It's just like, they're either going to get there or they're not. Right. So yeah, I'm trying to outthink myself here. You're correct. Like, if you're taking the Miles Sanders over, I mean, definitely put in the Hurts under on the passing. Probably an AJ Brown under as well. He's got a big prop, by the way, at 83.5. So, that would be the way to work it, where Sanders is just piling up. You hope he gets like 20 carries. You hope he gets like 120 yards. And then, the Hurts the big plays don't translate in the passing game, and they don't need to for Philly. So yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And I was surprised with AJ Brown. So we talk about how big a number it is. He's actually gone over it 4 out of 7 times, that 83.5 rushing yards. So he had 156 last week, right? Usually like you have 2 or 3 big games like that and then 4 or 5 quiet games, but he has consistently been over 83.5, or at least more often than not. I tend to lean towards the under tonight, and we'll see how that plays out. And just looking, if you want to play versus the house. So for instance, if you're like Jeff and you don't think Miles Sanders is a path to get to, 73.5 in the pickup contest, that's 78.5 versus the house. So you can go under on Miles Sanders there. You have a number of other options as far as, other players you want to get. You got the Jalen Hurts rushing total of 41.5, which we don't have in the pick'em contest. So you can check that out. If you put 5 of them together, you get all 5 right. You get 21 times your money playing versus the house, which is not a rate that you are going to see anywhere else. So be sure to check that part of it out as well. We can get into these receivers from Philadelphia a little bit. We mentioned AJ Brown there coming off a huge game. Devontae Smith has been kind of more of a possession receiver, and his reception total is only a 4.5. I kind of like that. The receiving yardage it's not as high as AJ Brown's, but we're looking under 60, and the projections like the under on Devontae Smith. So I guess I'll pass it to you. What do you make of what to do with Devontae Smith on a night like this?
Yeah, but again, by no means like a must play. Like, we have stronger plays up top. I mean, like, fading the Mills play and potentially just going over on Moore and potentially, like Jalen Hurts under receptions. But I think Smith is an interesting play. Like, I mean, we need like 7 props, obviously. And, like, again, the Eagles may not throw much, but one of these receivers is probably going to have a pretty decent game just because the Eagles offense is just really good. I mean, they're efficient. They've efficient quarterback play, bad defense they're going up against. So I think it's like siding with one of them is fine. AJ Brown could have a big game and still not go over his prop, but like, I think Devonta Smith, I mean, over 4.5 receptions. You can even take both of his overs and like 5 for 70 type of game could definitely translate. And then you just pair it with like an under on AJ Brown. It's not, but these receivers aren't a must play. Like, their props are up. I was hoping for like a prop closer to 50 on Devonta Smith. And I mean, it's not there. We're asking for like a pretty decent play, decent game. So yeah, I actually feel better about taking the over on Smith than Brown tonight. For sure. I think this is a spot where, the Texans saw what AJ Brown did last week. They do have, Stingley on the outside, but that's just going to leave Devonta Smith and potentially Dallas Goedert as well, just open over the middle. So I think it's actually a really good spot for Smith. He is definitely the receiver I would feel better about taking that over with than AJ Brown. I think the two correlate pretty well. I think that like taking the under on Brown and then putting in Smith. And again, like you can think about strategy wise. I think that the Brown under is projecting is stronger. So if you're going to use the two, you could definitely put the Brown in higher, but not many people are going to be on the over on Smith. So if you put that over on Smith in your high spot, and then you put the Brown in a little bit lower, you could potentially get some, just a little bit of leverage on the field, especially if the Brown one doesn't hit. Cause I think most people will be on the under for AJ Brown here.
And sometimes, these lower numbers that I'm about to throw out are gimmies, or there's a reason for it. I have a tough time with this one, though. Quez Watkins, 1.5 receptions, 16.5 receiving yards. If he catches 2 balls, he's probably going to go for like 60 yards. I mean, he's the big play threat. It's just a matter of, does he get there? He's had 11 targets all year. So, Quez Watkins really hasn't been a big play here. Now, producer Mike is a big Eagles fan. He's saying Quez over 16.5, played over 50% of the snaps last week against the Steelers in a blowout. And as we know, 1 catch very easily could put him at least 17 receiving yards here. The projections are kind of even. I left him off the board, but do you have a strong feeling one way or the other here? Because, he ain't going to go for 2 catches, 16 yards.
No, he really isn't. I like Quez Watkins, like just as a player. And it, again, like much like the Devonta Smith, it could be him that catches the 60-yard touchdown or something. I feel like one of these players is probably going to do that tonight. It's riskier because he could also he's had plenty of games where he hasn't even caught a pass. So, and now you've got like Zach Pascal also working into the mix for the Eagles, which he showed up last week. So yeah, this one is obviously highly variable. We talked about, just again, the wide receivers they're way more of a crapshoot. They need those specific events. They need specific like coverages to go up against. And if Watkins does get it, and I think this is a spot for him to do it. So yeah, it's a prop that I wouldn't feel bad about putting like lower down in a lineup. You definitely don't need to do it like in your high spot, but I would lean over here for sure. Probably more on just the yards, because like if he gets 1 catch for 40 yards, he's just going to feel terrible. And there seems an unlikely scenario where he's going to catch 2 passes that like one of them doesn't go for 15 yards or something. So yeah, that's the way I look at Watkins too. If you're going to use him, I would definitely go on the over. It's too low a prop, and he's out there for so many snaps still that I think there's a good chance he catches like probably 2 balls, and one of them probably does go for 30 yards. So
yeah, well, I think in general here, there's kind of 2 ways to build the lineup, right? You can take the 7 best plays and put them all up on the board one by one, and you're probably going to split. If you get to the top, you have at least a pretty good chance of getting to the top, but you're not going to hit for the full 10K. You want to get aggressive and play for the 10K. You need something a little goofy in there. We talked about going under on Chris Moore. That might be a way to be different from the field. But is there maybe a correlation that makes sense to you, whether it be chalky or a little bit different, a combination of plays that you think makes sense?
Yeah, no, look, I do think that, the Jalen Hurts prop is a 259.5 for passing. Mm-hmm. Look, we saw what he did last week. He just, he passed the ball all over the yard. There's really no reason another weak defense, just like the Steelers, where he can't get to 270, 280 here. And you bring it back with the Pierce over, and you hope that, the Texans come out, score on their first drive. Pierce gets like 40 yards. And then Jalen Hurts just starts chucking the ball, and you take an over on Devonta Smith and Quez Watkins, and because they're lower props, and then you take the over on Hurts, and you take Philly to basically do what they did last week, which is, yeah, they just did it. They ran the ball up, and I think that most people are going to be taking the traditional stance of, okay, Hurts isn't going to pass that much. The Eagles will win this easy, but they'll run. Maybe we'll take an over on Sanders, but I'm going to go under on this passing stuff. And then, just maybe take the over on Pierce. But yeah, I think that just being bullish on the passing game, I think being bullish on the Philly passing game is a good way to be contrarian, because I really feel like Smith and potentially Smith and Watkins could put up some big yardage here pretty quick.
I guess the one receiving threat we didn't talk about for Philadelphia is Dallas Goedert, the tight end. He got his name mentioned. I'm not sure we dove into him much. He's had at least 6 targets in each of the last 4 games. So he's an active part of this offense. He's capable as a tight end of picking up some yards, but it is a rather high number for a tight end, 52.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, it's a lot bigger than we see around the industry. And like you said, he's really just been locked in to like 4 to 6 targets, like 4 catches. I just don't see his target share going anywhere. Whereas at least with Smith and Watkins, we have that big play potential where Smith has shown against the right schemes, he'll get open and be good for 6 or 7 catches. Quez, we know, can go for the 30, 40-yard play. Goddard is like, okay, maybe he'll catch like 5 passes for 80 yards, but he might also catch 4 passes for 40 yards. Like, it's just, there's a very like weird lock he's in. And, like there just doesn't seem like a potential for like the 8-catch game. So the upside is kind of
no variance.
Yeah. And with the prop just being up where it is, it's one that I just feel okay just leaving off. Like I don't really have a hard take on it. I will not be shocked either way what happens with him, but it'll probably be within 10 yards. Like he'll go for 60 yards or he'll go for 45 yards. That's kind of what it feels like. So I kind of just, those ones, it doesn't feel like if you don't have that potential where, it could just break out and become kind of easy and easier path to making it. I usually just try and avoid it. So that's kind of what it feels like with Goedert.
Yeah, you don't want to necessarily be picking something that you're going to be sweating in the final 5 minutes of the game, and that's kind of where we are with Dallas Goedert.
That's what it feels like.
Consistently exactly. in that area. Very fair numbers there. Hey, while you're here, don't forget to check out Odds Shopper. It's got everything you need to make sure you're maximizing your profits. It'll give you the best places to shop your bets. You get the best odds. I like to consult it if I'm playing. If I'm playing on no house advantage, whether I'm playing versus the house or pick 'em, what are the numbers out in the sports books out there? We heard Geoff mention it a couple of times. Hey, this is way above what you're going to see out there. And it allows you to compare and contrast. And we know the sports books are covering these things and covering their tails as well, right? Where's the money coming in? So you could certainly use that to consult to help you out. If you are putting in some bets tonight, be sure to use it for that, where it'll give you the best places to put down your money if you think you know what the outcome is going to be. All right, we got a lot coming up here on the Stokastic DFS channel. No House Advantage Thursday night NBA with Terry and Gundacker is next. And then we'll have more football coverage, NFL Showdown live before lock starts up at 7 o'clock Eastern, diving deeper into the Eagles and Texans. Geoff, pleasure. I'm Pete McCarthy. Later, guys.
Good one, guys.